the mic.
Get on the mic.
Just get on the mic. Get on the mic, Mike.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to Get on the Mic. That's where you put me in front of a microphone with a few notes and I talk about some of the more interesting things that have happened in the world of entertainment throughout the week or whatever else I feel like talking about. Before I begin, I want to talk about my partnership with the DNA Digital Network. Now, not only you'll be able to find this podcast on YouTube, but now, thanks to DNA, you'll be able to find it on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and other places podcasts are available. Now you can listen to this program on your favorite audio device. For more details, check out dnadigitalnetwork.com. Before I begin with the program, I need to make a correction from last week's Quick Hits. On Quick Hits last week, I talked about a movie by Frank Oz that talks about the behind-the-scenes stuff from the Muppets, and I said it was free. I found out today, which is the release date, I'm recording this on the 16th, it's not free. You have to pay $10 to see it. They never indicated this throughout their advertising or anything. It's not a big deal. I still plan on watching it, but I just want to let everyone know that the movie is not free. You can pay $10 and see the movie, or you can, they have this weird $100 thing where you can watch all sorts of stuff, but, you know, I just want to let you guys know that if you were planning on watching it, there is a cost to it. So anyway, a little bit of a correction from last week. Like I said, I was just misinformed the first time. That being said, it's still a movie about the behind the scenes from the Muppets. Should be really interesting either way, whether it's free or you got to pay. Today on the program, we don't have a lot of topics, but there should be some interesting stories here. The first thing I want to talk about, it's a bit of an update about what me and Heisener talked about on the GB3 podcast this week. We talked about Toys R Us, but when we recorded our segment, they hadn't dropped any news about what's going on with Toys R Us, so I have a bit of an update on that. Also, we have an update on MoviePass from all the stuff we talked about last week. MoviePass backtracks on its quote-unquote tracking statements. And then, for some reason, the last story, I'm going to talk about The Informant, the movie with Matt Damon. Now, why would I talk about The Informant? Well, I'm going to talk about it in a little segment I'm going to call Story Time with Geno. But the first story we're going to talk about today is Toys R Us. Toys R Us is closing for now. Like I said, we talked about this on the GB3 podcast. We talked about, excuse me, the possibility of Toys R Us closing and what that would mean to us personally. Both me and Heisenerd went into, you know, how it made us feel and ideas that we thought, you know, would help them, or at least from what two non-business dudes, you know, could come up with. Just some ideas we thought that might, you know, how they might succeed given what's going on with them right now. Well, shortly after posting the podcast on Wednesday, Toys R Us higher-ups made it official that all stores would be liquidated in America and the UK, I believe. So, Toys R Us has said that they're still trying to save 200 of their stores. They're going to try to make a deal with their Canadian operations, which have not been affected. But they don't know which ones would stay open in America or the UK if they do. You know, 200 stores isn't a lot of stores, given we're talking about the UK and the US. I don't know about if they're trying to, if the 200 involves the UK or not. I couldn't find any concrete news on that. So I just want to talk about, now that we know what Toys R Us is doing. You have to excuse me, I'm starting to get some weather change stuff up in the sinus area, so just bear with me. There might be some sniffling and stuff going on during this show today. Alright, so what does Toys R Us mean to me? Well, I said this on the GB3 podcast, and I'll say it here. I don't want to grow up. I'm a Toys R Us kid, right? You know, growing up, I heard that song, I don't know how many times during Saturday morning cartoons and after school cartoons. And, really, I don't even remember the first time I ever got to go to a Toys R Us. I know for the longest time, I mean, I'm from a little town in Illinois called Illiopolis. When I lived there, there was like, I don't know, it's like 1,000 or 1,100 or 1,200 people, something like that. It's a lot less now. I don't live there anymore. It's been, I don't know. I've been gone from there for, I don't know, maybe 15 years, something like that. Anyway, but we used to have to travel to Decatur, Illinois, or Springfield, or Bloomington, or Champaign, if we wanted to go somewhere, like Toys R Us. And even not all of them had them for the longest time. I don't remember when each town got them, but I don't remember, I don't remember when the first time I got to go to one was. I believe it was Springfield store. It was the first one I ever went to. And I'm pretty sure I had to be in my teens. The first time that I remember getting to go to a Toys R Us. My mom might say differently. I don't know. I didn't get a chance to talk to her about it. But, it just wasn't a regular trip for us. But you'd see those commercials, and, I mean, you see the dancing guy in a giraffe suit, Jeffrey the giraffe, and, just the imagination of this store that it's all toys, I remember whenever I got through 8th grade graduation, we had the 8th grade graduation party, and this is one of the bullets that I dodged that night. Me and my buddy Tad man, if you're listening to this, you may remember this. We went to we had my party or whatever, and of course, most kids want to get away from the party, and we went me and him went to Toys R Us, and I took what little money I got from 8th grade graduation, and I went to Toys R Us with the with the brilliant plan of buying a Virtual Boy. Those of you that know what a Virtual Boy is, I mean, it's pretty infamous now. If you watch say Angry Video Game Nerds review of it or something, but it's that headache of a system that it's red and black, and that's the only colors it is, and they didn't have many games for it, and it was Nintendo's big foray into virtual reality. Well, I planned on buying one of those. Thankfully, long story short, I didn't, and saved myself a lot of money. But yeah, I that's like the first real big trip I remember taking to a Toys R Us, and I'm sure I had been to one before. But trips to Toys R Us for me always, I wouldn't say it was always special, but I always made a trip out of it. Say if I'd go whatever town I'd go to, if I go to, we had one in Decatur for a while. And it didn't last very long. I don't remember how many years. But back around when I was in college, we had one, and it ended up closing down, and it became a Harley Davidson dealership. And so then, now anytime I go out of town, I mean, there's some things in Decatur that we don't have, when it comes to stores and restaurants. So most times when I go out of town, I would make sure I go to Toys R Us, and a lot of times I make sure I go to Chipotle. My figure, though, I always say I am in shape because round is a shape. I can thank Chipotle for that one a lot of times. So, I would always try to make a trip out of it. It was special to me to go out of town and you know, I know they marked up everything, and I know that, you know, they didn't always have everything you needed, but then again, a lot of times they would have exclusive toys, you know, toy lines and stuff. You know, they'd always carry all the, a lot of the collectors' toys. You know, they always had something interesting to see. And it was cool going in there. And, you know, you know, I have kind of a method when I go in there. I go and look at stuff for my boys now. You know, I go to the kids section, the kids section in a toy store. I'm talking about the young kids, like the play school stuff, and you know, the little kitty cartoon stuff. And then I go around and look through the books. They have a clearance aisle. Usually I check that out in between there. And then I go to what I like to call the big boys section, which is, you know, toys for older kids and collectors like me. And of course now you look at pops and things like that. And then last thing I always go is the video game section. And then I usually once over the pops again, just to make sure I didn't see anything, or, you know, try to talk myself out of spending that money again. So yeah, Toys R Us was always special to me. And then also I've used it, you know, as like a special trip for my sons. Like, say they were good all week and I had a little extra money. Sometimes we'd drive to Toys R Us and we'd spend $15 on them or $20 on them, you know, if I could. Couldn't do it all the time, but, you know, it was always something special for me. Now, do I think that they're done for? I don't think so. I think someone will want the brand name, especially since Toys R Us is I mean, they may not be the last, like, quote-unquote name in toy stores, but they are the name in toy stores. So I could see somebody buying the name and maybe making a smaller operation out of it. The days of them doing the extra markups from every other place, you know, like we talked about this on GB3. You know, everything there at least would cost like, say you could find it somewhere else, it would cost $5 more at Toys R Us than it does anywhere else. The days of that are over. If they are going to get to continue, but if they get to continue, they're going to have to do it on a much smaller scale and build up from that. I don't think this is the last of Toys R Us. I do believe they'll make some kind of deal with the Canadian operation. Now, what's that going to mean for all the stores? Well, they're still liquidating the stores, but after they liquidate, I think they're going to assess where they're at and then go from there. I don't think it's the last we've seen of Jeffrey the Giraffe. It's the last we've seen of Toys R Us being this mythical superstore. But when it comes to Toys R Us as a brand, I honestly feel that this isn't the last we've seen of them. The next story I want to talk about is an update on MoviePass, the MoviePass news from last week. MoviePass backtracks on its tracking statements. We talked about MoviePass last week, quote-unquote, tracking their customers to gather data and, quote-unquote, create the ultimate movie-going experience. After I reported that last week, an app update supposedly took that function away amid fears from news organizations and customers. Now MoviePass has been in damage control ever since. This is a name we've talked about a lot. MoviePass CEO Mitch Lowe issued an open letter apologizing for the comments he made about tracking customers. It's not too long, so I'm going to read the letter in its entirety. That way all the information's out there. So here we go. Dear MoviePass members, partners, and employees, while speaking at a conference in Los Angeles, through a mix of exuberance about our future and joking around, I mischaracterized how MoviePass locates our members, and I need to fix that. It has raised a lot of concerns, and I understand why. First and foremost, I apologize for these comments and the concern they caused. At MoviePass, we take our customer privacy extremely seriously. I would like to eliminate any misconceptions that we're collecting location-related data. The MoviePass app currently uses standard location services capabilities on an opt-in basis. There are only 2 events that would prompt MoviePass to identify a member's location. These include when a member requests to search for theaters nearby and when a member requests to check into a theater. Both events require both the app to be open and for the member to request the action. MoviePass does not track and has never tracked or collected data on the location of our members at any point when the app is not active. In our recent update with Apple, we removed the mentioned, and they never mentioned Samsung Google Play Store, by the way. But I remember I got an update. Anyway, I got an update that day. We removed the background tracking capabilities. MoviePass does not use and has never used this feature. Our goal at MoviePass has always been to encourage people to see more movies as they were meant to be seen, in the theater. We want to make our service available at a price anyone can afford and everyone can enjoy. While we do create partnerships with theaters and studios in which we offer statistical data on ticket use and other trends, we never share our members' identities or personal information or personal data with anyone. MoviePass takes its members' privacy extremely seriously, and our current terms of use and privacy policy accurately state the ways in which we use data. If, in the future, MoviePass desires to expand how it uses data, we will amend our privacy policy and notify our members so that they will be afforded the opportunity to opt in or opt out of the MoviePass service. This is what our customers expect, what the law requires, and how we've always handled data. We want to assure everyone that we treat our members' data with the utmost sensitivity. Your trust and enjoyment are the lifeblood of our service. We understand that you may have further questions, so have included an additional FAQ page for your reference. Warm regards, Mitch Lowe, CEO, MoviePass. So, what do I think about what they were doing and not doing? Does this change my opinion? No. As I said last week, them collecting data is really no different than the cookies on our computers. Still, I don't think they ever intended this information to get out, because it makes them look bad publicly, whether their intentions for building the ultimate movie night or whatever, whether their intentions were good or not. I know they're wanting to cement their foothold on the movie business, on where they're involved in the movie business. But they got a little overzealous with their tactics, I think. I mean, you gotta remember, a lot of people were questioning, how MoviePass was going to do this to begin with, and they have a plan. They had a plan. They're not just like, hey, we're going to offer $10 and we'll hope it's okay. They've got a plan. And some of that plan got out. Whether or not it was happening now and they retracted it, or whether it was supposed to happen in the future and they let the cat out of the bag. I don't think they wanted this to get out now. I don't think it's going to affect anything. I mean, they're having enough problem with the customer service thing that this part of it people aren't going to be too upset about, I don't think. I think news organizations probably blew it more out of proportion than anything. I never saw anything. Now, I don't watch a lot of national news. I get most of my news from news organization websites. And I don't know if they ever covered this stuff on the TV. I'm sure they did, maybe a little bit, but I'm not seeing a ton on it. I don't think it's going to affect their subscription count anytime soon. But yeah, they let the cat out of the bag is what it was, and now they're just trying to play damage control a little bit. I don't think it's going to affect them too much. Like I said, they're looking to become a bigger player in the movie business. MoviePass is considering their own streaming service in the future. And a little bit of other news. Mitch Lowe, by the way, as we mentioned last week, he was a co-founding executive of Netflix, so I'm not really surprised by this. I mean, a lot of people call MoviePass the Netflix of movie tickets, you know. But, you know, this is just my thoughts on it. I really want to hear your thoughts on this. If you're if you're listening to this podcast on YouTube, go to the comment section. Let me know what you think of the what's going on with MoviePass. You know, do you think this whole tracking thing's a good idea? Do you think it's dangerous because if they have that info and say they get hacked, you know, do you think it's any different from any other business? Do you think it's, like I said, different from cookies on your computer? Let me know what you thought. Let me know what you think about it. So yeah, if you're on YouTube, put it in the comment section, or if you're listening to this on Google Play or Stitcher or iTunes or whatever, you can comment on it on Twitter at the Reel Geno. That's ReelGeno, the Reel Geno on Twitter. Just let me know what you guys think of this whole MoviePass story. Now, for our last big segment, we're going to talk about The Informant, the movie starring Matt Damon, The Informant. Well, okay. What's so important about that? Well, The Informant starring Matt Damon turns 9 this year. So, you say, why? What does that matter? Well, there are some articles in the local paper last week or early this week. I can't remember if it's Saturday or Sunday, that talked about The Informant, which, though it turns 9 this year, the filming of it turns 10. The filming of The Informant was in 2008, so it's 10 years old now. For those that don't know what The Informant's about, the U.S. government decides to go after an agrobusiness giant, which is ADM, with a price-fixing accusation based on the evidence submitted by their star witness, Vice President turned informant, Mark Whitaker. The story of The Informant is based in and around where I live, Decatur, Illinois. And a lot of The Informant was filmed right here in Decatur and surrounding areas. Mark Whitaker lived in Moweaqua, or in the Moweaqua area. I can't remember exactly where it was. They actually filmed at the house he used to live at. They filmed, even though some of the stuff got dropped from the movie, they filmed at the local mall in Forsyth. They filmed at the Forsyth movie theater. Those scenes got cut, I believe. They filmed at a local restaurant that Mark Whitaker liked to go to, called the Chinese Tea Garden. They just went in and around town, and Decatur was abuzz with Hollywood for a while. And the story I want to talk about today is when they filmed at the TV station that I work at. Years ago, when these events were going on, Mark Whitaker talked with the news. And so they decided, by the way, this movie, it's a Steven Soderbergh movie, and the tone of the movie, if you saw Logan Lucky, you get an idea, kind of the overall tone of the movie, where it's a serious tone, or it's a serious story, but they give it kind of comedic tone to it. That's kind of what they did with The Informant. There's a couple times in the movie where it gets kind of serious, but most of it is a comedic tone. And one thing I liked about The Informant was there was a ton of comedians cast in it. Joel McHale had a big role as one of the government agents. Scott Bakula's in it. I know he's not a comedian, but I'm just pointing out that him and Joel McHale are like partners. They're government agents in the movie. You'll see guys like Patton Oswalt, for example. Tom Papa is in the movie. But all these comedians play it straight, which it's like the bigger actors are kind of the one playing things, in a comedic style, and the comedians are, total straight men. And it was so interesting to me. But anyway, they wanted to film at the TV station because Mark Whitaker had talked to the news station I work for years ago. So they wanted to film at the studio because really a lot of the building was the same. Of course there had been a few updates, but a lot of it was the same. So they wanted to film in there. So, Hollywood comes to my TV station. First things first, they want our logos and stuff like that, and we give them our old logos. We were at the time we were an ABC station. I believe we had already changed to an NBC station, so we couldn't put the ABC part of the logo on, but we gave them the call letters logo, and they made this background for the interview set, which my boss at the time joked. He was like, "Oh, can we keep that?" And they were just like, "No." They didn't think it was too funny. But anyway, so they set up this set. They bring in, I think they used some of our stuff and didn't use some of our stuff. I can't remember if they used our chairs or brought in their own chairs, but some of our stuff they used, some of it they didn't. But they put up this cool printout. It was like an overview of Decatur, and they put that in the background and had our logos on it and like fading that into the background, and it was a really cool looking set. And yeah, I'm pretty sure we were NBC at the time because I remember they had to use the old logo, and I was like, I know my boss wanted to keep that background, but it's like, boss, that's the old logo, And so anyway, they get set up, and we were told they needed room to work. That they wanted to try to keep people away from the set. So what we did, we had this interstation channel that you could, anything that was punched up on the board, you could see throughout the station. So what we did was we put the stuff that we were filming downstairs in the studio on this interstation channel. And so people could watch when Matt Damon came in, right? Yeah, that didn't work. The filming, granted, people weren't going down in the studio, but see, we have studio control upstairs, which is where the director's board and the graphics equipment and the audio board and all that stuff is. And then you go downstairs, and that's the studio. It has the new sets and the cameras and everything. People packed into studio control wanting to watch Matt Damon, to a point where I think the crew of the movie was getting kind of pissed because everyone was in their way. So anyway, so we're setting up, and they want to use our stuff downstairs first. We knew about that, but then they also shout out to Karen Barding, an old friend of mine who was the director at the time there. She's retired now, happily retired. She was a Chiron operator, which is, for those that don't know TV, a Chiron is a character generator, which you see the names at the bottom of the screen, and now it's used for full screens and things. She knew the old equipment. She, as we like to say, she forgot about more than I've ever learned, right? she got to make the graphics for the movie that you'd see on screen. And so those got to show up in the movie and everything. And so she got to make that stuff. And then there were three of us, four of us counting the audio person. I don't remember who was running audio that day. But up front, I got to run the graphics. Karen was there to make sure everything worked. And Craig, who is now my boss, he was a director at the time, he was doing the switcher. And so they were using our cameras as we were filming a fake interview with Matt Damon playing Mark Whitaker. And so what we had was, we had one of our reporters, Scott England, and they chose him. They had a casting go on, and they picked some of our people to be reporters and things like that. You know, kind of just basically play themselves. And Scott England got to be the interviewer, and then we had two other people playing anchors at the news desk. And during the production of this movie, we had some of our reporters got speaking lines. They used a lot of local people. We had, all sorts of people involved, not just from the station, but, from town. They used a lot of people for, for extras, but some of them even had speaking roles. Scott England, the guy that did the interview, he jokes about getting residual checks from the Informant for like 8 cents, every now and then. But anyway, so we're getting ready to do this filming, and in comes Matt Damon, and then he sits down, and they start to do the filming. And we ended up doing about three or four different takes on this. And here's how the scene was supposed to go. It was Matt Damon being interviewed as Mark Whitaker on the news set. And they were supposed to do the interview, and he's talking about a scene where I think it was someone tried to kidnap him or something like that. And he went to the news to talk about it. Matt Damon and his prosthetic nose, and his character just lost the mustache. He shaved off his mustache before his big TV appearance. So he's doing the interview, and then what it's supposed to do is after the interview, they're supposed to show Scott Bakula's character at a diner watching TV and not being too happy that Mark Whitaker has went to the media about this whole thing. And so it's supposed to show the interview in a TV set, and then the TV set, we're supposed to switch it from the interview to the anchors, and they're basically, tagging out, saying, well, thanks, and now they talk for a little bit, and then now let's go to our weather, right? Well, here's how that story goes. Okay. Oh, and by the way, all this time, we're talking with the guys that are working on the movie, to make sure we're doing everything they need us to. And all of a sudden, they start to film upstairs where we're at. And so then, we're like, what's going on here? And they go, oh, we're just doing this for, like DVD extras, right? The making of stuff. Okay, cool. So we don't think anything of it. So anyway, so we start with the first scene. And long story short, when it comes to the interview parts, The interview parts go fine each time. We never had to start over on those. But when it came to the the passing to the anchors, something went wrong on those scenes. For the 3-4 times we did them. One of the anchors, God bless her, she was nervous, and she kept laughing during whenever, the other anchor would toss to her. And so when we got to our maybe third time, though it was in a joking manner, he was laughing when he said it. And I'm sure it's not the first time he said it about an extra, but and I know this because we were recording. We were asked to record by the movie studio our feed in case they needed it, right? So we were recording in Premiere, and Matt Damon, after like the second or third time, I think it was the third time that she giggled and was apologizing for it under his breath and kind of laughing. He was just like, effing amateurs, and so that was quite funny. But anyway, they film at our station. One thing that was cool, one of my buddies got to be one of the downstairs camera guys. We had 2 cameras at the time down in the studio, and his name's Larry, and he was being asked. He's another guy, by the way, that has learned more or forgotten more than I've ever learned about certain things. He's the guy that, if you've watched a lot of my interviews on YouTube, I would say 99% of them he recorded. He was the camera guy for me. He did me a lot of favors, and I think there's only maybe 3 or 4 of my interviews he wasn't the camera guy for. Anyway, I guess Steven Soderbergh, the director of this movie, was asking him, what shots he should take and how would he do this and how would he do that with this camera. And, my buddy Larry, he claims to not, anytime I take him to meet these people and go to these Comic-Cons and stuff, he always acted like, it wasn't anything special, but it kind of was. You could tell sometimes. I mean, there was occasionally someone there he'd want to meet or something. And I always joked with him about, oh, come on, you like this, and anyway, he got so excited that the director of this movie was asking him, for advice. So anyway, we do the filming, and long story short, I came prepared that day. I knew that Matt Damon was going to be at our studio, so I actually printed out a picture from one of the Bourne movies. And after the filming was over, of course, everyone stormed outside because they wanted to meet Matt Damon. And so a lot of people did get to meet him, including me. I didn't get a picture with him. They were kind of rushing him out. People were taking too much of his time, and they were trying to rush him out. Now, Matt Damon was being cool about everything. He was meeting everyone, taking pictures of everyone, but they were kind of rushing him out of there. And so when he was, the people that were rushing him out of there was preoccupied, I snuck by and asked him for an autograph, and I got an autograph on my picture. And, for about 10 seconds, I got to talk to him about the Bourne movies. Didn't get to talk a lot, but, he was, very nice guy. And then plus everyone that ever met him around town said he was a nice guy too. So, that was a cool experience. Just that whole experience of them filming at our station was really cool because, it's not like a blockbuster movie setup, but, The Informant was a a smaller budget movie, but still, I mean, you got Matt Damon at the station, Steven Soderbergh at the station, Scott Bakula was running around town, So anyway, that was a cool experience. So in 2009, the movie's finally released. And I go see it because I was curious. I wanted to see, what our little town was involved in. And I noticed something in the movie. I was in it. Now, you can't see my face, but come to find out, the stuff that they filmed upstairs, they must have liked, because a lot of it ended up in the movie. They just didn't show the interview stuff downstairs. When the scenes begins, they show a lot of our control room. They show the clocks and the TVs. Well, anyway, there's a shot where if you watch the movie, there's 3 people you can see. First of all, and then also later, my buddy Larry got on camera. It's a far away shot, but if you know Larry, you can tell it's him, right? Which is really cool. And this happened with a lot of people that were in the movie. You could tell a lot of who people were, and it was really neat. But anyway, in this shot, on the left is my now boss Craig. In the middle, she's sitting a little further back, you can see a little bit of the back of my friend Karen's head. And then on the right side, wearing headsets and a red flannel shirt, and someone whose barber hadn't visited in a while, you could see me. And I thought that was really cool, man. I know it wouldn't be much for some people, especially say if you were a inspiring actor or whatever. But for someone like me, that was just a really cool moment. Because get this, because of this, I can say that at least for 1 week, I was in the number 2 movie in America. The Informant, its opening weekend, was the number 2 movie in America. Now, the number 1 movie in America was Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, for those of you wondering, the animated, CG animated one. And even though they kind of considered The Informant a flop, you got to remember this. It had an $11 million budget. And most of that, almost all of it, I believe they made around $10 million the opening weekend. Now, here's a funny statistic about that. Okay. We did a report after the movie came out. I think it had been out a week, maybe 2 weeks. And I don't remember where they got this from. I looked for it, but I couldn't find it. But you got to remember it's been 10 years or 9 years ago. Or, 10 years ago. No, it would have been 9 years ago. My apologies. 90-some% of the money the movie made was in the Illinois or Midwest area. And then they showed a U.S. map. And, there's this big glob of dots in the, Illinois area and spreading out. It's like a contagion. That is a nice Soderbergh joke. Unintentional Soderbergh joke. A contagion was spreading from Illinois because a lot of the dots weren't in the other states. I mean, there's some in the Midwest area. The filming of that movie, a lot of it took place in Central Illinois, and then some in like the St. Louis area and stuff. So yeah, 90-some% of that movie was made around us. But anyway, still, it was the number 2 movie in America. And I mean, I'm honestly kind of surprised it didn't do better. Because ADM, even though it's in Decatur, which isn't a big town, ADM is a global power. But I gotta say, I know it wasn't a big movie, but for me, as someone that is a fan of Matt Damon, is a fan of Scott Bakula, is a fan of Steven Soderbergh, and then also there was a lot of other talent in that movie, people that I liked. Just to name a few, I mentioned Tom Papa was in the movie. Tom Wilson, who is Biff in the Back to the Future movies, or for me, he's Maniac in the Wing Commander games. Like I said, Joel McHale's in the movie. There's just there was a lot of talent in that movie, and just to be a part of that for me was kind of a big deal. It may not be a big deal on the grand global scale of things, but for me, it was a big deal. So that's the story of the filming of The Informant. But this story is not over. The last part of the story, jump ahead a few years. 2012. I go to Wizard World Chicago, which, other than last year, I think it was just last year and probably this year, I went there for like 9-10 years straight. But 2012, it was kind of my yearly trek away from everything. Haven't been able to do Chicago for personal reasons for a while. But I've got to go to other cons and stuff. It's a scheduling thing. So 2012, Wizard World Chicago. Scott Bakula is going to be a guest. Scott Bakula is someone I have admired ever since Quantum Leap, right? And so he was always someone I was afraid to meet because I'd seen interviews with him, and maybe, from what I know now, I could tell you maybe he just was quiet around cameras, right? But I was always afraid that since I admired him so much, he was going to be someone, if I met him, they were going to be a dick, right? I was always afraid of that. But now, don't get me. I'm not. This isn't going to be a story that Scott Bakula is an a-hole, right? No, Scott Bakula was cool. So I just want to get that out there. But I was always afraid that he was going to be a jerk. I just want to let everyone know that no, he's not. But that was just my fear as a fan. There's always a fear as a fan that the more you admire someone, the bigger a-hole they're going to be, and then your thoughts of them are going to be dashed, right? So anyway, Wizard World Chicago 2012, I get in Scott Bakula's line. I finally get to meet Scott Bakula. Holy crap, it's Scott Bakula, right? And one thing I noticed about Scott Bakula when I met him, he had this porn stash going on. And I'm like, okay, I mean, don't get me wrong. This is Scott Bakula, and Scott Bakula's the man. He can rock this porn stash, but it's like, why is he growing this thing? I mean, you never see him with facial hair, right? Or very few times you see him with facial hair, but he's got this porn stash. And don't worry, I'll explain. So most people that were in his line probably had stuff for him to sign from 2 different shows for the most part. Enterprise, Star Trek Enterprise, and Quantum Leap. No surprise there. Dean Stockwell was at the same event. When I got my pictures later, I got the dual picture for the Quantum Leap picture, right? Because of why wouldn't you? Maybe another time I'll tell the short Dean Stockwell story about when I talked to him. Anyway, most people were bringing up stuff from Enterprise or Quantum Leap. So I brought up, I printed out a picture from The Informant when Scott Bakula's character is listening in on one of the bugged rooms. He's got the headset on and the tape machine in front of him and everything. And I bring that up for him to sign. And I don't know if I made his day or just surprised him or what, but Scott Bakula was just like, The Informant, wow. You know? And I'm like, I was just like, I didn't expect that kind of reaction. I don't know what I expected, but he gave this reaction, and I was like, oh yeah, and I told him a story that I just told you guys about, you know, them filming there and everything, and he thought that was really cool, and he goes, I'm working with Steven Soderbergh and Matt Damon again. We're working on, and at the time he called it a Liberace movie. It didn't have a name then. It's the movie that Soderbergh had trouble getting someone to produce that HBO finally picked up, and it never made the theaters. I had Michael Douglas as Liberace, Matt Damon was in it, and then of course Scott Bakula was in it. It was the movie that ended up becoming Behind the Candelabra. And he goes, yeah, we're working on this Liberace movie. And he goes, you know, we still talk about our time filming The Informant. He goes, we love that area. We just love being there. He goes, the people were so nice, and everything we did, everyone was so helpful, and you know, everyone just was so excited to be involved, and we love it, and we still talk about it to this day. He goes, it just keeps coming up, and we love it. So we had a nice, fun conversation about this whole event, and it was, to this day, one of the coolest experiences I've had with a celebrity, especially one that I really admire. I gotta say, most of my stories at conventions are at least good. You know, my interactions with celebrities are good. Whether they're really genuine or just acting like it, you know, that's on them. At least for me, my experience was fantastic. And, you know, to this day, meeting him is still one of my favorites, especially because of kind of how personal the conversation was. So the last part of this story is this, you know, we get done and he goes, oh, let me sign your picture there. And on the picture, I wish I had it in front of me. I'd tell you exactly what it said, but I'll just say what it is verbatim. I haven't looked at it in a long time. Cause I have books upon books of 8x10s of stuff signed, for the years of conventions I went to. But on the picture, he wrote, to Geno, thank you so much for being in the movie with us, Scott Bakula. And he wrote a couple other things on it. And it's still one of my favorites to this day, because of the whole experience. Now, I wish I would have got to meet Scott Bakula when he was in Decatur. But just getting to meet him, you know, at this convention. And by the way, the porn stash was for the Candelabra movie. And if you've seen that movie, you know why. He's wearing a longer wig, and he's got the mustache. And like I said, he can pull the mustache off. But yeah, just that whole experience from the filming of the movie to, you know, the roundabout of getting to meet Scott Bakula and talk to him about it. For me, it's still one of my favorite things, that I've got to do or be involved with. You know, I may never make to Hollywood. All of us, you know, I wouldn't say we all have big dreams of making it to Hollywood, but all of us have thought about, you know, what would it be like, you know? I can at least say, and I know a lot of people can say this, but, you know, to each his own. I get to say that I got to be a part of it for a while, and it's something that I'll always remember, and it's something that, you know, I can share with my kids later. I showed them. I'm not going to show them the entire Informant movie. I mean, they're you know, they're 8 and 10, but eventually I told them about it the other day. That's like, you know, Daddy's in this movie, right? And they got pretty excited about that idea. I mean, they think it's cool that Daddy's on YouTube, and Daddy used to be on, you know, the news there for a while. You know, I did my movie reviews on the news for a while, and, you know, just getting to have that little brush with Hollywood, though it may not be a big deal to anybody else, or only a few people anyway. For me, it was a pretty big deal, and it's something I'll never forget. So that's it for Story Time with Geno. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now on to quick hits. Actor Christopher Eccleston has been speaking out against two of his movies, Thor: The Dark World and G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra. He had this to say in an interview: "Working on something like G.I. Joe was horrendous. I just wanted to cut my throat every day, and Thor, just put a gun in your mouth." Now, he was talking about his roles in blockbusters in general, at this time, and he continued, "Gone in 60 Seconds was a good experience. Nick Cage is a gentleman and fantastic actor, but G.I. Joe and Thor were, I really paid for being a whore those times," end quote. Now, the next two stories have a bit of a connection to the first one. AMC theaters are going to be hosting I guess I should say the next three stories. AMC theaters are going to be hosting a huge Marvel movie marathon, which will show every movie from the first Iron Man up until Black Panther. That's 31 hours of movies leading up to Avengers Infinity War. While admission prices and times are not yet available, the marathon is set to begin on April 25th, which will lead it right up to the release of the new movie. I can tell you this, Christopher Eccleston would probably be proud of me. I'd probably choose Thor: The Dark World as one of the movies that I'd take a bathroom break during. Speaking of AMC, from now until April 30th, if you buy a ticket from the AMC website or the app, every ticket you buy gives you a chance to win free movies for a year. This is an obvious ploy to get people to pay them directly and not go through MoviePass, don't you think? So, let me see. I saw something like 150 movies last year. At about $10 a pop average, that would cost me somewhere roughly around $1,500 that year for a chance to win a movie for a year, or win movies for a year. Nope. I think I'll stick with paying $120 a year and still see the $150 or 150 movies through MoviePass. Give it up, AMC. They beat you to the punch. Most people know by now that Nick Cage was supposed to play the Man of Steel for Tim Burton's now infamous Superman movie that never happened. Now, if you want to hear the story on that, there's a great documentary called The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened. If you haven't seen that movie, it's been out, I think it was last year, the year before when it came out. Excellent movie. After all those years of living with the disappointment of not getting to play his favorite superhero, Superman fanboy Nick Cage will now get to make his dreams come true in animated form. He has been cast to voice Krypton's favorite son for the Teen Titans Go to the Movies movie. I, for one, was already very excited for this movie, and now I am even more so. While we don't know what Disney and Marvel's plans are for the X-Men, but if one Walking Dead actor has his way, he'd be one of the biggest recasts of all time. The Walking Dead Jesus actor Tom Payne has expressed interest in being the man to take the place of Hugh Jackman as Logan, aka Wolverine. I don't know if he'd be my first pick, but you never know. All I have to say is this. I know Hugh Jackman has said he's done, but we have yet to see if Disney wants to recast or keep adding zeros to that paycheck yet. Fans of the movie Hoop Dreams may be interested in a movie that played at this year's South by Southwest. The documentary Chi-Town follows about 4 years of the life of Kiefer Sykes and covers his journey in basketball and trying to stay alive in Chicago that is only getting more violent every day. Chi-Town has been receiving rave reviews from critics that saw it at South by Southwest and is currently looking for a U.S. distributor. This seems to be a spiritual successor to Hoop Dreams. Sean Bean was asked during an interview about what his character Ned Stark from Game of Thrones was whispering before, spoiler, got his head chopped off in season 1 of the show. While there have been many theories, Bean casually said that Stark was just saying a prayer. Given that this show's world is a place where magic, including transferring your consciousness to other creatures, exists, the truth behind his statement will have to wait until the final season of Game of Thrones comes out in 2019. There are rumors that Deadpool 2 has been doing very poor at test screenings of the movie, but there are conflicting reports of this. Either way, reshoots are being done nevertheless. While people are worried that these are being done to quote-unquote fix the film, some reports are saying that the filmmakers wanted to add in more of two of the new characters, Domino and Cable. Apparently, they are breakout stars of the movie, similar to how Brianna Hildebrand's Negasonic Teenage Warhead was in the first one. Let's hope it's successful. Otherwise, we'll probably be seeing a PG-13 version of Deadpool joining the MCU in no time. Margot Robbie has now officially signed on for Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She'll be playing Sharon Tate in the movie that surrounds the Manson murders. She joins Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt for the movie, with Tarantino supposedly offering a role to Tom Cruise and also wanting Al Pacino in the movie as well. Jesse Eisenberg said in an interview that he is unsure of the future of his playing Lex Luthor. Wait, he had a future playing that role? Ian McKellen and Helen Mirren are set to star together in a movie called The Good Liar. I don't know what the movie is about, and honestly, I don't care. If it has those two in it, I want to see it. A while back, I said I'd be reviewing Netflix's The Cloverfield Paradox soon, but the movie was so forgettable that I forgot to review it, and I'm not going to. The director of A Wrinkle in Time, Ava DuVernay, has signed on to direct The New Gods for Warner Brothers and DC. Last year she revealed in an interview that she was a big fan of the legendary Jack Kirby's comic creation, especially of the character Big Barda. What this means, or should mean, is that Warner Brothers hasn't totally abandoned the idea of bringing one of my favorite villains, DC villains Darkseid, to the big screen. Though A Wrinkle in Time wasn't a very good movie, this wasn't really her fault. She didn't write it, and she didn't give it the crappy movie CGI. I look forward to seeing what she can do with this world. Lastly, Fox is considering rebooting the Buffy franchise, but on one condition. They will not do it without Joss Whedon. In other news, Firefly fans are pissed. That's going to do it for quick hits. Now for just a bit of a channel update. As I said last week, the quest for 4,000 hours continues. I'm still about 300 hours away from reevaluation. It's been about a month, so that's not too bad. I'm getting there. I still keep encouraging people to watch as much of my stuff as you can, especially the longer form stuff, because of course the longer form stuff adds up quicker. As I mentioned last week, I've suspended production on Netflix and Chance, the Punisher retrospective and critical reviews for now. I don't know when they're coming back. I'm still doing some more Geno's Bad at Games. Should be finishing up Max Payne very soon. I believe I'm on Max Payne 3 very soon. I believe I'm on the last level. I'm pretty sure I know what my next few games are. Some of them are, one or two of them are longer. Some of them should only be maybe one or two sits for each. Some of them are movie-based, some of them are not. And as I always say, don't worry, I'm not becoming a gaming channel. I'm just trying to have a little fun. Last thing, I want to draw everyone's attention to these different things. As I've mentioned during the Toys R Us story, in this podcast, there's the Geek Be Cubed, GB3 bi-weekly podcast on the Geek Be Cubed YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to that, I ask that you please do. Also, I ask that you subscribe to my partner in crime, Heisenerd, who does the GB3 podcast with me. I ask that you subscribe to his channel, the Heisenerd channel. He does gaming live streams and Let's Plays, among other things. He has a weekly podcast on his channel called Heisenerd Speaks. And now, not only we be able to find the GB3 podcast or the Get on the Mic podcast, but you'll also be able to find Heisenerd's podcast, Heisenerd Speaks, and the GB3 podcast on the DNA Digital Network, which now not only be able to watch this stuff on YouTube, listen to it on YouTube, but you'll be able to listen to it on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and all the places that podcasts are available. So now you'll be able to listen to all three of the programs on your favorite audio device. For more details, you can check out DNADigitalNetwork.com or GB3World.com. That's going to be all for Get on the Mic this week. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to listen. I want to thank everyone for taking the time to subscribe to this channel. As I always like to say, you know, most of the people that come to this channel are just cool people. This is a little bit of a tangent. Lately, and I know this has always been the case, it's not like I'm just discovering this, but I'm just seeing more of it now. The internet, and especially things like YouTube, can be a pretty ugly place. You know, I've ran across some things like I guess they're called internet blood sports, and I've ran across just channels that are just there to bring everybody down. And while I'm okay with channels, doing, having criticisms and things. I like to, I don't like to be too mean when I do this stuff. I mean, I may crack jokes, and I may have some personal issues with certain people, but I try not to make it, front and center all the time. And what I appreciate about most of the people that listen to this channel, listen to my content or even my friends' content, those that I work with, I appreciate the people that just want to be cool online. Especially on my channel, I mean, I have to deal with a troll every now and then, and I'm probably asking for it now, but the people that come here just come here to have fun, and I like that. I like that people are here to have fun. And if that means my channel's never going to get big, you know what, so be it. Because I just know that the bigger it gets, and I'm not saying I don't want it to get bigger, because I got thick skin. I can handle, most things people throw at me, especially if it's about me. The channel, if it gets bigger, the more, trolls see the channel getting bigger, and the bigger the channel, the more they want to troll it, right? That's the best way I can put this. The people that I interact with on my channel, we just want to talk, man. We just want to chill and talk about movies and games or whatever we're talking about, whatever the video is about or whatever. And I welcome that. I love it when people just want to chat. Like I said, occasionally someone wants to be a jerk, but I gotta say it's pretty rare. And I have a lot of regular contributors to the channel, and I dig those people because they're like me. They just want to chat, and they don't want to come in here. And like I said, I deal with the occasional troll, but it's rare. And I just want to thank everybody for that. I want to thank those of you that just want to be cool, man. Everyone just want to be cool, Say be cool, Sorry, I gotta break out the Pulp Fiction. What's Fonzie like? He's cool. And as you can tell, I'm getting tired. It's been a long week. But guys, those of you that support the channel, and are just cool, I can't thank you guys enough. And I appreciate your support, and I will always appreciate your support. And if something happens that, I can't do this anymore, which I don't see that being the case, but if something happens and I can't do this anymore, I'll still always appreciate the support that I got. I'm just a guy, either in front of a microphone or in front of camera, that wants to have fun. And those of you that understand that, which is most of you that are here, I appreciate that you support me in that, and I can't thank you enough. Anyway, that's going to be all for Get on the Mic this week. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, I'm the Reel Geno, Geno Reynolds. Peace.